Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you very much for joining me for today's live session. I'm going to be having someone who is very, very experienced in an industry that we are very unfamiliar with, to be honest. This is an industry that many people actually don't have the privilege of ever entering into. And I'm so glad that everyone is here to join me today to try just to educate ourselves on a different side of the world and the properties that we always see from afar that cost millions and millions of rands. Properties in reality that most people will never buy, but properties that me and you are dreaming of buying one day. So I'm going to be having someone who's going to join us who's a real estate agent, who's head of sales in this department, who's really going to break down to us to help us have a better understanding of the luxury real estate market. So when you're speaking about property, most of the time we're usually speaking about property in areas of sub a million, basically properties that are affordable to the average South African, properties that are not really for the top tier South African. And there's so much that there is to learn. But if one day you are privileged enough to if you are privileged enough one day to know exactly, if you are privileged enough one day to know exactly and have the funds to purchase a property of that caliber, then basically there are certain things you're gonna need to know, and hopefully to gonna be able to break down that for us. So he's on the live and I'm just waiting for him. Ryan, they're connecting. Great stuff. Hey Ryan, how's it?
Mr. Ntombela, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Good, good.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I think it's a conversation that people actually never have on luxury real estate, which is a property market that is unfamiliar to most people, I guess.
That's
Yeah.
that's true, man. For the general public, I mean, luxury real estate and real estate in general, it's kind of a myth. No one really knows, what
Yeah.
actually happens in the space until you're involved in it.
I guess so.
So yeah, I'm
But
happy to
definitely,
help
I
and
think,
answer some questions.
yeah, I definitely think you'd be able to assist us in that regard. So maybe if you could just give us a brief background of who you are, where you're from, where do you operate?
Cool. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you gave me the brief introduction. Thanks for that. So essentially, I'm the head of sales for Chas Everett Santon, specializing in the luxury division. So a little bit about me and background to my career. I'm going on 12 years now in the real estate industry.
Yeah.
Originally, I started in a smaller boutique firm south of Joburg, where I was mentored and trained in the industry. My background and my path in life was actually supposed to be finance. So, after schooling, I went into the private banking realm.
Yeah.
And having studied entrepreneurial management, getting into the corporate space, I very quickly realized that it's not actually
Not
for
for you.
me. And
Not it.
yeah, and I mean the finance side of it is great. I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. I love
How
finance.
long did it take you to figure out that this is not for me?
I would say around a year, and at the time. I happened to bump into the sales director of the previous company that I was with,
Mm-hmm.
and him and I got chatting, and he said to me, "What about real estate?" And I'd never thought about it. What I understood of real estate is you want to sell your house, you put a board outside, an agent sells it for you, and then your house is sold.
Yeah.
And chatting to him, I realized that there could be a lot more to it. And I then took the leap and resigned from my job. And funny story, I started real estate in the year that the markets crashed. So that was back in 2008.
Yeah.
So, I came in bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to take on this new career in real estate. And I was selling something no one wanted to buy. So it was challenging, but having gotten my footing in that kind of market, what it did teach me is how to actually sell and the most important elements of real estate is helping people buy versus selling to people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so through that, I was with him with a good couple of years, and I then got into negotiations a while back with the company that I'm now with, and head up their sales division, and specializing in the luxury space. And it's for me, it's my dream job. I've never been happier,
Yeah.
and it's a great industry to be involved in, and every day is different. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine though. But like, wouldn't you say, I've noticed that, well, I'm assuming, based on what I've seen on TV and stuff, I remember there was a show the one time I saw where there was a lady who was a real estate agent, who was selling some property that cost like $50 million or something like that. And
Okay.
then the only condition for her to get the mandate was that she needs to find someone to take care of the kids. So I automatically saw that, okay, this is definitely something that is a luxury, something that you're only
Yeah.
ever see in the probably luxury real estate markets. And I'm not really sure whether it's something that's realistic, whether it really does happen or whatever. But how would you say maybe real estate from properties below $1 million differ to properties that cost north of 10 million?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying now, I mean, it's a crazy example for people to watch the kids to get the mandates, but I think the key element there is that in luxury sales, it's a lot more of a targeted approach. So if everything is negotiable, there's
Okay.
no set protocol that you follow or anything like that. Anything can happen, and it's about how quickly you adapt to those things. So
Yeah.
the biggest difference I feel for your sort of sub 1 million real estate listings versus north of 10 is the difference between people either needing to sell or needing to buy versus north of 10 million. It's about people wanting to sell and people wanting to buy. And that's a huge thing because your pressure points on the sale and the purchase are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Because north of 10 million, you may be selling to someone that already owns 3, 4, 5 properties. So
Yeah.
if you try sell to those people, they don't want to be sold to. So it's a very different mentality to when you're trying to sell to someone that's say sub 1 million. And they may be looking for their family home. They may be looking for their starter home, and it's about
Yeah.
ticking those boxes for them. If you can tick those boxes, you will have a sale or you will have a deal.
Mm.
But the biggest key is definitely the pressure point. So what I talk about a lot in the luxury space is God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen more than you speak. So
Okay.
if you can understand what it is that your client's looking for in the luxury space, and you've got the network, you've got the listings, you've done the background on your clients, and you can service what they want, you have the deal. So
Okay.
I think that's if that makes sense to you, I think that's one of the biggest things.
I think you mentioned something in there that I maybe want to dig a bit deeper into, and it's
Sure.
network, right? So I'm assuming that's something that's very important. You can't just put up a board outside and think you're going to sell the property that costs 90 million.
Yeah. No.
So
No.
how important would you say the networking within the space is? And where do you find these type of people that are selling and buying properties that are so expensive?
So I think the big thing comes, part of the big structure for our company where that network comes from is the structure that myself and my CEO have in terms of the network that we've built over the years. And that's essentially rubbing shoulders with the right people. So the more you sell to people in that space and the more you sell for people in that space, if you do a good job, you do get referred because people will, and that's across any market. People will much rather deal with someone that a friend of theirs has dealt with, or a family member or something like that, where they can have first-hand experience and say, look, these are the guys you need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you give that good service, the referral comes. Every time that referral comes, your network builds. So that's a very important factor in terms of your immediate network. And I think in terms of selling in the luxury space, what's very important as well is is sort of trying to understand that, like you rightly said, if you list a home for 90 million rand and you put up a board outside, please do not hold your breath, because you're going to go blue in the face. You're not going to get that phone call. So,
Okay.
what is important is, different marketing tactics. It's not the likes of your traditional platforms help. So your private properties, Property 24s, that's where the bulk of the market is. But to get buyers in at that level, you need to be exposing yourself internationally. You need to be exposing yourself on social media platforms. You need to be exposing yourself to the market, and potentially even to the kids of the market that may buy. So exposure is massive. Exposure is massive. And through that kind of marketing, the buyers do come.
Okay. I think maybe what you just mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, is something that could actually work for any other property. Like you mean if you I mean if you're selling below a million or in any range, actually it could really be very beneficial to put yourself out there, network with as many people as possible. But I guess in the luxury space, your networking and your focus is more zoomed in on high net worth individuals and possibly even international clients, as you just mentioned.
Correct. So, I mean, real estate in general, real estate has always been network based. As much as you use the traditional platforms to advertise and back your listing or back your
Yeah.
sale, networking is massive. And on that note, the likes of doing something like this with an IG live and getting that network out and having people understand, I think it's a huge thing. So you need to make sure that your network, I mean, using as an example, we talk about it a lot. How many friends do you have on Facebook? Right?
Sure.
Some people have 1,000 friends, 1,500 friends. Does every single friend on Facebook know that you're in real estate? Do they know that if you have any need in real estate, they need to come to you before they go to the next person? And that's about constantly reminding those people that, hey, you are part of my network. So if
Yeah.
you need anything from a real
I'm
estate perspective, I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
here. And that
Okay.
just grows and grows and grows with time and good service.
All right then, cool. No, so now that I know that, I guess I'm actually thinking of purchasing something north of 10 million. And what tips would you give me if I were to be looking into purchasing something north of 10 million? Maybe because likely, as you mentioned, what I have realized is from the few conversations I've had with people, the very, very few conversations I've had with people who have purchased very expensive properties, that they
Yes.
actually do own two or three homes already, like two or three houses already. They have maybe a holiday home in Durban or something in Cape Town and something here in Joburg. So they're not really unfamiliar to the process of buying a property.
No.
So I don't know, like what would you say I should look out for? Maybe certain risks or certain things that you could say could go wrong for me if I'm purchasing such a big investment and such a large investment. What should I look out for so that I don't make a mistake with such a big
Make a
purchase?
mistake. Cool. So the first thing exactly that, hey, like people buying in this market, and buying that north of 10 market, these guys seldom make mistakes, and there's reasons. So as
Okay.
as you as you said, they seasoned investors in property. They understand the process. They understand the things to look for. I think the biggest thing for luxury space tips like for a buyer is that get your sort of checklist right first.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to tell me deep and intricate, very detailed, what it is that you're looking for. So bedrooms, bathrooms, stand size, land size, preferred look and feel, the things you want, the things you don't want. Because what happens a lot is that in the luxury space, there's a lot of properties available in a lot of areas. So your spec has got to include what area you're looking at. And when you start delving into what area you're looking at, I, as a real estate professional, am able to tell you, look, market ceilings are at a certain level. So if you're looking to area and the market ceiling is 15 or 18 million rand, I don't want you spending 20 million rand unless it's a home that's absolutely mind blowing, because one of the biggest keys for buyers in the luxury space is they want to buy equity. So what I mean by that is they want to buy value. So when they buy their property, they either need to know that off the bat they're buying the property at 1 million under market value or 500,000 under market value based on the valuations that we've done, or alternatively, what's happening in the area in the next 3 to 5 years. So understand, as much as it's important to understand what it is that you're looking for in a home, you've also got to understand the area that you're buying in, because if you read any kind of real estate manual, they always talk about position, position, position.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is about where you buy, not necessarily what you buy. So those are the real keys. So what I do find is a lot of people in the luxury space, when they're buying, they've done their homework. They know what's happening in the area. They know the relative market values. Yeah. They generally know the property that you're selling to them, what the value sort of should be. So I go to it again in saying it's very old school, and it's very difficult to say that we sell homes. I prefer to say we help people buy homes. There's a big difference in that, because buying something like this, and it's irrespective of who you are. If you're buying a house for 500,000 Rand and it's your residential home, or you're buying for 50 million Rand, it's most probably the biggest investment that you're going to make at that point in your life. Yeah. So my job role and my mandate to anybody that I'm dealing with is I'm going to help you make the right. You okay?
Yeah.
So I'm no problem. I'm going to help you make the right decision in terms of what you're buying.
Yeah.
So do your homework, make sure the area is right, make sure that you're buying equity, whether it's current or future equity. You want it as an investment, if possible.
Okay. Do you find that it's mostly bonded houses, or a combination of both when these purchases are happening?
So it's an interesting question. Depending on where the market is as time goes by, because I'm sure you understand all markets have ebbs and flows. Yeah. So, I would say, looking at the market last year, I was seeing a lot more cash deals where people were wanting to put liquid into a property, not really wanting to bond. And there's a very important spin-off of what you just said now, bond versus cash. I'm sure you track these things. The interest rates at the moment are the lowest they've been in a long time. So what people are now looking to do, and it's in that space as well, what people are looking to do is lend as much as they possibly can and hold on to their liquid, because of how uncertain the times are. I mean, 2020 has been a crazy year. How uncertain times are, people don't necessarily want to let go of liquid, but they still want to buy a property. So they say, right, well, let me leverage the banks, and then I've got access to those funds at any given point at a rate that I'm not really going to be able to replace for a long time to come.
And I guess it's the perfect time to make use of such low interest rates, because at the end of the day, the interest that they'll be repaying is minimal compared to what they could potentially do with the cash that they have on hand for any opportunities that might arise, and whatever other cash deals that might require and be necessary for them to actually use cash. But if I don't need to use cash right now, let me make use of the low interest rates. The interest rates I'll be paying will be minimal. Maybe to me, that interest is not minimal, but definitely when you are at that scale, that interest that you'll be repaying is something that you can definitely forget about, because the opportunity cost of you putting down 10 million rands as a deposit, that 10 million rands could be used for some other opportunity, I guess. It's more than just, then you start thinking a bit more with your money and trying to be more smart with your money.
Correct. It's all about leverage. It's all about leverage. So for people to bond right now, and it's right across the board. If you're buying at 1 million rand, if you're buying at 10 million rand or 20 million rand, try and leverage the banks, because these rates we aren't going to see again. So to all your followers and stuff, anybody that's listening, if you're looking to get into the property market, right across the board, now's the time. And as soon as you've got that home registered into your name and you've got access to that facility, it's a good leverage tool. So it really, really is good. Yeah.
So in the luxury space, then, have you seen maybe a downward trend in terms of prices over the past, over the past year or so? or do you see prices being stable?
So I would say at this point the prices have stabilized. So the last peak that we saw in the real estate market in SA was around end of 2018. So, people talk about buyer's market, seller's market. I prefer to talk about relative markets because most people are making shifts in a relative market. If you sell in one market, you're going to try buy in that same market to try catch that same trend. So,
Yeah.
the prices have come down since 2018. Do I see them coming down further? No. Reason being is that if we look at the pricing, and you can relate it to a price per square meter in certain areas, arguably they were inflated. So people were charging a fortune. The market was responding to it because the rest of the market is there. So if you wanted to buy, that's how you've got to buy. And what's now happened is that the markets have stabilized. So if you're looking at, I believe this is across the board, again, as much as I focus in luxury, my larger team, we're working right across the price ranges. And what I'm seeing is that homes are now, in my opinion, correctly priced. They're correctly priced. So, and what's now happened in terms of the rates coming down again, 2020 has been a crazy year. So
Yeah.
we didn't know what to forecast, when the lockdown happened. Were sales going to happen? Were people going to stop buying? What, where do we go from here? And surprisingly, we've had our busiest 6-month period in the last 7 years. So I think that's really important. And again, to anyone listening, I think it's important, if you guys are looking to buy, it's the right time to do it now. Because, as much as some people talk about, prices coming down and whatever the case, we're seeing interest climb in terms of people wanting to buy because of the rates. So it's making it making it a little bit topsy-turvy. No one knows what's going on. So if anything, prices may still go up. We don't know. So, if there's any time to buy, I would say it's now.
The one thing that I noticed was I had a certain expectation of properties to really, really dip. But then when I looked at how many buyers were out in the market wanting to buy a property, and literally there being now a shortage, I believe, in my opinion, from what I've seen, there's so many people who want to buy, but there's just not enough stock. And when it is like that, you end up finding a situation where there's 3 offers on one house. So that doesn't really, that doesn't now push the price down. When you have one offer on a house, then the potential buyer has all the power to try and renegotiate a lower price. But when there's 3 offers on a home, then you don't really have that option. So prices haven't really dipped as much as people would have thought. And because there's just interest rates are so low, so people can genuinely afford to buy a property. And with interest rates this low, I think it really is the best opportunity and best time for people to buy a home or an investment for themselves, because then you can afford it right now. And even if interest rates go up within the next 5 to 10 years, let's say, by that time you would have created a bit of a buffer for yourself, some equity in the property. You would have maybe increased your income at your job, that's where you're working. So it's not really a factor to consider that much, but not to say that you shouldn't consider it at all. That's just how I've been seeing, and what I've been seeing actually when I'm looking at property sales.
Yeah. So I mean, it's exactly that. Your view is 100% correct. So it is happening. There's 2, 3, 4 offers on one property. So when that happens, and it makes sense. It's like any market where there's an oversupply of something, prices are going to drop. When there's no supply, prices hike. So that's the thing. You get economists with different views and that kind of thing in terms of what's going to happen in the market. In 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. And I was actually chatting to one of my clients the other day, and he said to me something very interesting that I think will stick with me for a long time. He said, Ryan, there's 2 types of forecasters. There's the forecasters that don't know how to forecast, and there's forecasters that don't know that they don't know how to forecast yet. So, i.e., what that means is that there is no forecasting, because you can look at things in a certain way and the market will go completely different. So
Mm-hmm.
right now, where the market is, no one expected it to be like this. So there is definitely a stock shortage, and people are buying. There's articles going around. I read one the other day saying it's as though there's a Black Friday sale on real estate because people are just going mad and they're trying to get their hands on anything that they can.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say the market's buoyant. It's really buoyant.
And I think if you're someone who has the opportunity to buy right now and you don't take the opportunity, you'll look back and say in 5 years' time and think to yourself, I've wasted so much money maybe renting. Whereas if I were, because one thing about rent is rent always goes up. That's one
Yeah,
thing about rent. Rent always goes up. And then
100% year on
you'll
year.
start realizing and calculating, shit, I pay 6,000 rands rent a month or whatever. What is that over a period of 5 years? And you'll start realizing
Correct.
and thinking that I actually could have bought myself a nice house for this 6,000 rands and lived in a better place that I'm living in, that I'm renting in right now. And because interest rates are so low,
Correct.
your affordability, well, not your affordability really, but the amount that you qualify for would slightly be higher than usual. And yeah, take
It's
advantage, take advantage. So would you
it's
say
it's exactly that.
now I'm thinking, would you think that I believe personally probably a bit more effort is needed to sell a luxury home than a home that is less than R1 million. And how long then does a typical sale take you? Like how long would you say it takes you to help someone find a home?
Yeah. I mean, look, from a sales perspective, how long does it take to sell a luxury home? It's a tough one because I use a lot of analogies. So I say my job is about finding the right lid for the pot. So
Mm-hmm.
that lid might come along in 12 hours, or it might take 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just about fitting client with a luxury home, and if that happens, then we're good to go from there. But I think the most important note in terms of how long does it take to sell a luxury home, I turn that around on my sellers and say, look, how long, in what period of time do you need me to sell this home for you?
Okay.
Because what that's going to do for me is set the pricing parameters in terms of where that listing needs to be. Because like I
Mm.
was saying to you earlier,
Yeah.
the market has definitely come down from 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of the sellers out there and a lot of clients will say, well, I had a perceived value of my home at X. You now telling me it's X less 15 or 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really like that, but I'm not in a rush. And if that's the case, we can put you on at a figure that we agree on, somewhere between where you wanted to be and where I want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and let's test the market. And that may take 4 to 6 weeks to test that market. And we then come to conclusion together to say, right, it's time to now reduce. We've exposed your property at a certain level. Let's bring
Yeah.
it down until you get to that sweet spot. Now, the sweet spot is the key. It's pricing. It's pricing. So I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. People in this market, especially in the luxury space, want to understand that they're buying value. Whatever that value point is, it could be within their spec, it could be in equity, it could be in anything.
Yeah.
But anybody that's buying wants to feel as though they've got a deal. No one wants to ever feel like they've overpaid for something. It's not exciting.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. But I work on with any seller. I say to them, look, the average sale period is 3 to 6 months. But if it's a very bespoke home, it can take a year. But if you
Mm.
don't have a year, we're going to have to adjust pricing to make sure that
Make it
we
quick.
get you positioned correctly to sell in the correct amount of time. So it's almost a question of how long is a piece of string. So it's a tough one to answer, but there's things that we look at and we make sure we work on those timelines.
Okay, that's very interesting. I guess it's a completely different mindset that you have to come with, and a completely different conversation that you're having when you are discussing whether how long it's gonna take. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're basically saying that if they feel like their property is worth, let's say, 20 million, because in 2018 they could have sold it for 20 million, and now you feel like no, maybe it's somewhere around 16 million. We'll meet somewhere halfway, and test the market at that price range. And if the market doesn't respond in a way where in the way in which we want it to respond, then let's try my price.
Correct.
And then let's see from there. And then if they're not in a hurry and they're adamant on their price point, then they realize, make them understand and realize that this might take a while, and if you're willing to wait, it is okay. I can take this journey. I can walk this journey with you.
100%.
Okay.
100%. The biggest thing for any real estate agent to understand, or anybody that's looking to get into real estate, is that you've got to understand that any transaction is not about you as the agent. It's about your client. And if you can service your client correctly and help them through that process, then in turn, you'll do a brilliant job.
I always look at it, and when I think about it right now, I'm thinking about it from the perspective of saying, if I'm working with you as my clients, I should do everything in my power to achieve whatever your goal is. And by achieving your goals is basically by nature, I'll be achieving my goals as well as a real estate agent, which is to help you find a home. And I always get confused whenever I hear bad reviews, I should say, bad things about agents, where agents just wanted to catch a quick commission here and there. But because that's selfish, I guess that selfish approach that person was having in that moment in time to just get that quick come is really not going to last long term, because you're not going to build a relationship with the person. They're not going to give you referrals where maybe they actually have 3-4 friends who want to sell a month down the line, or 3-4 friends who want to buy a home down the line. You will never get that referral because you got them a bad deal. So service your clients, and in servicing your clients, you're actually servicing yourself and helping yourself as an individual to grow, and also growing your business as well.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's exactly it. It's exactly it, because you do that quick deal where you feel you were more important in that transaction. That is the last that person will ever deal with, last time that person will ever deal with you, and they won't refer you. And then the knock-on effect of that, because good news travels fast, bad news travels even faster. So it's something so important. You said it brilliantly. I love it.
I just saw a question pop up here quickly. Someone's asking, who is the agent's real client, the seller or the buyer, or what is the balance? And I think maybe in my response is something that I just maybe would apply to both sides, because if I'm the agent of the buyer, if I'm the seller's agent and I listed their property and I find a buyer, I don't want to, at the end of the day, rip off the buyer either, because if they feel like they got a good deal and the seller feels like they got a good deal, I potentially have 2 recurring customers, and their network becomes potentially my network as well. So I think if you're gonna be a good agent, you're gonna try and make both parties happy and not favor the seller because they're the one who initially gave you the mandate, but also just be fair and be open to making sure that the buyer is also getting a good deal, and they're not going to be upset down the line because there's something that they didn't know about the property that they should have been aware of, or whatever you hear out there that's going on. I don't know, what would you respond?
So I think from my side, again, a lot of valid points there. So, we in South Africa, we follow a very different model to the likes of the States, where you'll have a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. So it's almost in the States, the seller's agent's in the seller's corner, buyer's agent's in the buyer's corner. Here, as agents, you actually have a massive responsibility to both parties involved in the transaction. So again, I look at it slightly differently. My view in any transaction is that, obviously, if you're bringing on a property and you're representing that seller, you yourself need to understand the pricing on that property. You need to believe it's saleable. You need to believe it's priced correctly. Now, when that buyer comes along, that's when the negotiation process starts. But now, bearing in mind, you're representing the seller, right? So how I look at it is that in any sale that you do, granted that the people have given you a mandate and you're there to represent them, the seller is your constant in any equation. Your buyers are variable. Okay, so what do I mean by that? You have to first satisfy the seller's needs, right? By bringing them on correctly, agreeing on price, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And when that buyer comes along, you then need to convey the value in that property. If you can do that correctly and you know that you're giving them the right deal, that's when the transaction happens. But
Okay.
we've got again, it's a good question. We've got a lot of safeguards. Like we were talking about bond or finance.
Mhm.
If you are to buy a property through an agent and you apply for a bond, if you are granted a bond, the bank separately sends out a evaluator to physically inspect that property.
Yeah.
So you've got that safeguard to protect the buyer as well because of those exact instances where people do try to rip people off.
Yeah.
So it's really about being, following a code of conduct, being ethical, and making sure you do the right thing.
Okay. All right, I see. I think this conversation of the luxury stay real estates is something that I've never actually really sat down and had with anyone, and I'd actually love one day, maybe. Hey, who knows? One day, maybe I'll join you on a viewing, hopefully somewhere in Houghton or maybe Hyde
There,
Park, where you guys sell these lovely properties, and we could do a live something similar like this. But definitely an interesting thing to get into, because at some point it's something that everyone dreams of having, and we all at some point in our lives go to Property 24 and look at properties we don't afford and judge the interior and judge the painting, the way whatever is designed. And that's
yeah,
that's that's just how life is. That's how I know personally. I've done it a few times, and by no means
100%.
am I someone who's very good with interior. I get my friends to help me with that, but I
Yeah,
know sometimes I'll get there, be like, I don't like those curtains, I don't like that table, I don't like this, I don't like
yeah,
that. But yeah, it's a very interesting. It's very interesting actually, and I'd love to one day maybe venture into it. And hey,
100%. My,
okay,
my, my, my door's open. You let me know, and we'll make that happen for you and your followers, man.
all right, great.
It'll be fun.
Great stuff, great stuff, great stuff. All right, then. I think
Yeah.
that's it for today. If there's any other questions or someone who knows someone who might want to be purchasing real estate that is in the luxury space, or someone who might be selling, definitely contact Ryan. His Instagram, you can just see him on his Instagram. You can just click on his Instagram right now. Just send him a DM. I'm sure they're more than welcome. Where else can they reach you, Ryan, if they need any advice or looking to purchase real estate in that market?
Yeah. So I mean, if you guys want to find me on any of my websites, it's chazever.coza. We're also on luxuryportfolio.com, and obviously Facebook. It's my full name as well, as you'll see on my Insta. So lots of points of contact. If you guys have got any questions or whatever it may be, just give me a shout and I'll help you if I can.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much again, Ryan, for joining me, and hopefully talk soon.
Only a pleasure, man.
All right, thanks.
Thanks,
Cheers.
eh? Cheers, eh? Bye.
Bye. So, yeah, guys, yeah, thanks. Great discussion. I think for me that was very enlightening. I didn't know much about the luxury space of real estate, and I think conversations like this are very good to have. And I'm definitely gonna take him up on his offer, and I'm gonna do a walkthrough of a luxury home that costs like 90 million rands or something. Wherever that home is, I will travel there and I will join him, and we'll do a live session, or I'll take a video and put it on my YouTube channel or something. Actually, send me ideas, different ideas of how you'd like me to shoot that session that we'll be having. Hopefully, find something that's like 100 million that is ridiculously priced and ridiculously massive. Yeah, so you guys can actually have the experience of walking through that property, because we only ever see those properties on Property 24. I've never personally walked into one, and I would love the experience, and I'm sure you would love it as well. Anyway, do contact him if you do know anyone, or if you are interested yourself in that type of real estate or in that market. His doors are wide open, and feel free to DM him at any point. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you very much for joining me again, and I'll see you on my next live. Cheers.